War between Ukraine and Russia has led to a severe crisis in the world political arena, especially in recent days. Turkey, an ally of Ukraine and acting as a mediator in its efforts to discourage Russia from this war, also took its place in critical diplomacy traffic. Turkey has tried to stop Russia from the invasion of Ukraine with the negotiations it has held in succession in the past days. Russia, on the other hand, took a surprising step against Turkey's efforts to end the war. Since the beginning of the war, Turkey has been working hard to convince Russia to end the war and to return Crimea to Ukraine. As a result of the talks between Turkey and Russia this week, the Russian administration is responding to calls for negotiations by abandoning its long-standing harsh stance. While Vladimir Putin previously stated that the negotiations would not be held with the USA, Germany, and the UK, he is now taking a step back after meeting with Turkey. In addition, serious steps were taken on the grain agreement, prisoner exchange, and Black Sea security. These talks are very serious steps to keep Ukraine's current economy alive and to raise the morale of the whole of Ukraine. We will present you with all the details of Turkey's warnings to Russia and the final points reached as a result of the negotiations. After taking a look at the background of the sharp change in Russia's harsh attitude, we will examine the critical talks that took place between Turkey and Russia. In the shadow of the chaos of the war, Turkey's move and Finland's recent accession to NATO reshaped Europe's security landscape, upsetting Putin's plans and changing Russian policies. This move doubled Russia's border with NATO. It marked a strategic and political setback for Putin, who had long complained about NATO's expansion towards Russia, and used this as a justification for the invasion. Following Finland's accession to the International Military Alliance, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken acknowledged that Putin's aggression encouraged countries to take measures to protect their defenses and deter potential Russian aggression. But despite the rhetoric, Vladimir Putin is unlikely to reverse this setback with an aggressive stance, according to a prominent Helsinki-based analyst. But the Russian Ministry of Defense has threatened Finland with military countermeasures after the Scandinavian state joins NATO amid Putin's widely announced plan to move nuclear weapons to Belarus. But Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu described Finland's NATO membership as a dangerous and historic mistake. In fact, Moscow has consistently implemented these threat policies against the Baltic, Northern, EU, and NATO countries ever since it illegally annexed Crimea from Ukraine. However, we must also bear in mind that the Kremlin has a long history of making nuclear threats, and that this latest clamor is unlikely to have a significant impact on the region's strategic balance. So right now, we can see that the weather in Finland remains calm despite the belligerent threats from Putin's defense minister Sergei Shoigu. Kremlin spokesman Dmitry Peskov also criticized NATO's anti-Russia stance, but also downplayed the effect, citing no territorial disputes between Russia and Finland. At this point, Turkey, which has a mediator role, has taken critical steps to reduce this hidden tension in the international power diplomacy and to ensure that the war in Ukraine ends as soon as possible. Russian President Vladimir Putin and Turkish presidential spokesperson Ibrahim Kalin had an important meeting recently. Important issues were discussed at the critical meeting of Putin and Kalin. As a result of this giant summit, it was announced that Putin was willing to start negotiations with NATO on Ukraine. Kremlin representative Dmitry Peskov announced during the meeting that Putin acknowledged that Russia does not want to avoid talking about Ukraine forever, and is ready to enter negotiations to end the conflict that has killed thousands and displaced millions of people. The decision of Russian leader Vladimir Putin, who took a step back as a result of this striking move by Turkey, shocked the whole world. According to the reports in the Turkish press, Putin stated that he does not want war forever and that they will not flee from negotiations. After these critical statements, it was among the striking news that Putin's main demand was that the negotiations be conducted with Germany in particular, the USA, and the West. After Putin got in touch with Ibrahim Kalin, diplomatic traffic continued rapidly. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov arrived in Ankara for a two-day visit to discuss Russia's war against Ukraine and Ankara's ties with Damascus and Yerevan. On the second day, Lavrov met with his Turkish counterpart Mevlut Çavuşoğlu. Russia-Ukraine war dominated the agenda of the duo. Meanwhile, Lavrov stated that during their talks in Turkey that they wanted Ukrainian peace talks to focus on creating a new world order. In fact, Russia has been expressing that it's been fighting against the dominance of the USA on the international scene for a long time, and argues that the Ukraine attack is part of this struggle. However, the attitudes of both Russian leader Vladimir Putin and Foreign Minister Lavrov towards peace negotiations indicate that Russia's policies towards the Ukraine war have changed drastically. On the other hand, during this critical summit, Çavuşoğlu also expressed Turkey's sincere gratitude to Russia for its rapid relief efforts after the earthquakes that killed thousands of people on February 6th in southeast Turkey. Lavrov has become the highest-ranking Russian official to visit Turkey since the earthquakes. After the meeting between Çavuşoğlu and Lavrov, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan received Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, who came to Turkey. The critical meeting between the two took place at the presidential complex. Again, the Ukraine war was on the agenda. Mutual demands were reconsidered, and the president of Turkey stated that they would like to see a new world in peace again. Considering all these gigantic negotiations, 1 year behind the Russia-Ukraine war, Turkey has consolidated its position in the Middle Corridor as a result of its geographical location and the right policies it has followed. NATO member Turkey has positioned itself as a mediator between Kiev and Moscow in this war that's been going on for more than a year, and has also mediated with the UN thanks to its important diplomatic breakthroughs so far. A remarkable message came from the United States about the steps Turkey took to end this war. U.S. Department of State spokesperson Ned Price emphasized that they appreciate the constructive role played by Turkey in ending the Russia-Ukraine war, and stated that Turkey uses its relations with the two countries for the hope of peace. Price emphasized that Ankara has been a constructive player since the beginning of the war. In addition, the spokesperson of the U.S. State Department had a telephone conversation with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky regarding the ceasefire. He also drew attention to the role played by President Recep Tayyip Erdogan in the Black Sea Grain Initiative, hosted by the United Nations Security General Antonio Guterres. Additionally, Price was quite right about that, because the role played by Turkey, this mechanism, the Grain Initiative, could not be renewed. As a result, this mechanism is a system that supplies tons of grain to the world's most needy countries. In addition to using its position as a NATO member and good relations with the international community, Turkey also tried to raise hopes for peace by using its relations with Ukraine and Russia. In short, Turkey made a lot of effort to end this war. If you remember, President Erdogan was one of the leaders who met most frequently with the leaders of both countries. In all the talks, the main agenda was what steps could be taken for peace. In addition, since the beginning of the war, President Erdogan had frequent telephone conversations with Russian President Vladimir Putin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. In this process, when Western states confronted Russia, Turkey managed to become a NATO member that could hold talks with both Russia and Ukraine. This situation was criticized by many European countries, especially France. As a matter of fact, French President Emmanuel Macron made it clear that he did not want Turkey to be the only world power, the only NATO member that continues to negotiate with Russia. However, it is a fact that a scenario in which Turkey cannot establish a dialogue with Russia means a much more problematic future for both Europe and the parties to the war. For this reason, the steps taken by Turkey are of vital importance for the course of the war in Ukraine. And even now, thanks to Turkey's communications with Lavrov and Putin, Russia seems this close to peace talks for the first time in a long time.